Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. It is honestly an honor that so many of you showed up, and I know a bunch of you are waking up at like 4 or 5 a.m. to do this, so that's awesome. I am super excited for this. I have been using Next.js since its like second release many years ago, and we are nearing the corner on version 10, and make all of Hack Club's websites and my personal projects with it. And so, yeah, so Next.js Conf is starting tomorrow morning, and that's going to be rad. And so I'm at Lachlan JC, and then I will, I guess, pass it over to Alan at Poetry of Vercel. Thank you so much for being with us.
Awesome. Thank you, Lachlan, for having me. Yeah, so I'm super excited for NextConf. Lachlan reached out and he thought it would be a great idea for us to kind of preview what Next.js is before we actually get into the conference. He mentioned that a lot of you guys have some basic HTML, knowledge, a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of CSS, but not necessarily experts with React or not necessarily familiar with what Next.js is. So before we get into it, I just want to kind of give an overview of what position does Next.js play in this greater enterprise of web development that is so awesome and so fun. Well, let's just start with the name real quick. Next.js. I think it's one of my favorite parts of it because it's really supposed to be what you reach for your next project, for your next side project, for your next event, for your next company, for your next startup, for your next everything, anything related to getting something on the internet. I think Next.js is a great choice. For beginners, right? People just messing around and playing with HTML and CSS, as well as for companies like Apple. Apple is using Next.js in production. Twitch is using Next.js in production. Like the list goes on. And I think if you guys join us for the conference tomorrow, you'll see how advanced and prominent of a framework this really is, how powerful of a technology this is. I think in the web development landscape in general, the front end has taken a more primary seat so that people can focus on rich user interfaces versus kind of dealing with servers and DNS and all of these complicated things that used to be really, really difficult just a few years ago whenever anybody wanted to get something on the internet. So I think Hack Club is really awesome. Lachlan has been doing some excellent work, and the rest of the Hack Club team, Minji, and so many people that I can't really mention right now, but just there's a lot going on with you guys have it good basically. There's never been a better time to be a web developer, and I'll show you that Next.js and even React is really simple because you can kind of learn it as you go. So the technology stack that I want to, the demo that I want to show you guys is kind of a full stack application using Next.js, Tailwind, and Userbase. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with what Userbase is, but I really like Userbase because it kind of handles user authentication for you, as well as giving you a database to actually store content. And they've actually recently added payments all into one kind of backend service. And the really cool thing is that, you don't have to deal with, again, like a MySQL server, a traditional kind of backend experience. It's all possible from the front end from Next.js, and we'll get right into it. So the format of this is going to be pretty chill, pretty laid out. Again, I'm going to be building this app from scratch. You guys, I'll try to keep the pace as slow as possible. We'll just kind of go as figure out how things go as we roll with it. Please feel free to interrupt me or drop some messages in the Zoom chat. And honestly, if you guys want to, you can interrupt me. Like, I think the mics, I don't have a strong preference for like making sure everyone's microphones are muted while we're going through with this. I think, if someone wants to kind of chime in, go ahead, as long as it's not like everybody at once. I think we can keep it chill like that. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick and get this thing going. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yep, thank you.
Nice. Okay, so if you guys have, I'm assuming you guys might have Node installed. If you guys have Node installed in your machine, you should be able to type something like this into the terminal. It should come up. If you need help with that, maybe someone from the Hack Club community can help you with that later. But real quick, I just want to show you guys that on GitHub, the Next.js repo, the really cool thing about this is that we have examples for pretty much any technology that you would want to pair with a front-end framework. And it's amazing because like this this particular aspect of Next.js is what's really powerful is the community is really involved with making sure that you know, there are high quality examples to really get started with. Because at the end of the day, once you are familiar with the basics, you just want to kind of get moving, and everybody has their preferences on what technologies they want to pair with Next.js. Some people like different CSS and JS solutions. Some people like different backend. So, you know, there's just really the limit. There's no really limit to what you can do with Next.js, and so we actually have a Tailwind starter. It just makes it really easy to kind of get going. So what I usually do is like I'll come to this Tailwind repo right here, and we actually have a command right here that helps you kind of just copy and paste it into your terminal, and it should scaffold out a brand new starter with some of the boilerplate already configured for you. So it's going to paste that in there. Actually, I want to rename this last argument. So we have npx create next app, and then the example that we're interested in is with Tailwind CSS, and then we can kind of name this project whatever we want. So I'll just do like Hack Club full stack. Yeah, I think that's cool. So go ahead and do that, and you know, yarn and all of that, installing dependencies. Sometimes it takes a long time, but I don't think this should take too long. Nice. So we have our initial app scaffolded, so we can just kind of enter the directory that we just created and see what we have created for us. So out of the box, you'll notice that you have a couple of directories created for you. Components, this is your node modules directory where all of your JavaScript dependencies are stored. Pages is kind of, so we'll get into this, but essentially pages is like a logical unit where routing is kind of taken care of for you. You don't have to deal with any complicated libraries for that. As you add files to this pages directory, so if I do like a, I don't know, just for example, like about.js, you'll automatically have a route available under this. So we'll get into that. Styles, this comes with a few styles pre-baked, and we're probably gonna, I think there's some same defaults. Again, this application is not necessarily gonna be the prettiest, the most amazing UX, right? But we're gonna have some good defaults configured, and we're just gonna kind of take a tour of what Next.js is and what you can do with like user base. So in our package.json, everything's kind of configured for you. These are your dependencies. As you can see, we're gonna be using the latest version of Next.js, and then here are some configuration defaults for Tailwind. But again, you don't really have to worry about these things. These things are just there, and it's nice to at least be familiar with them, so you're not super scared or of all these files. So we're just gonna go ahead and run yarn dev to get our dev server coming up, and let's see, should be starting up. Nice. So automatic, this is basically what comes out of the box with the starter that we started out with. And you can see there's a few things already going on. So let's just let's start from what this underscore app.js thing is. This is basically your root app component. Again, like if you're not familiar with React, this you can kind of like not worry too much about this. But essentially, all of this is kind of like where you would have your layouts and your kind of initial setup for your application. We're going to actually be taking advantage of this just in just a little bit. If we go to our index page, you can see that we already have an H1. This is where the Next.js, Next.js at Tailwind CSS, we see that this is the cause of this result right here. And then we have a list of class names. The thing that I like about Tailwind is that, here, we're just gonna pull up this Tailwind documentation right here. And keep in mind that consulting documentation is pretty much a part of your everyday job as a developer. Like, there's no way that anyone would expect you to know a bunch of class names from the top of your head. Maybe the most common ones that you're gonna be using all the time, but for example, text 5XL. So we're just gonna be like text size, type in text size, or font size. And notice right here, there's text 5XL, and that basically has this CSS rule associated with it. So there's a bunch of nice classes to get you pretty much most styles that you would want to. And then if you ever need anything that you want to configure, you can always do that. But this is a great, this covers pretty much 80% of what you would want out of the box. So nice. So we're gonna, so this is your H1. And if we look over here, we have this nav component. Let's see, let's go check out what nav is. So nav is a nav, and it has a UL and an unordered list component with, you know, a few link components in here. And we're just pretty, so don't worry about this like links.map thing. Yeah, it's just a way to grab these objects and basically retrieve the values of these objects and then render these little links as for as many things that we have here. But we're actually going to get rid of this in just a little bit. But I do want to keep a button here because we're going to create a user account. So actually, let me actually introduce you guys to Userbase real quick. If you go to Userbase, it's pretty simple. It lets you basically create private web apps using only JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. It's pretty awesome, and it's really simple. Like, if you go to the docs, there's really not a lot of, the API surface is pretty small. So it's really nice. Like, you can sign up, you can sign in, you can sign out, and it kind of takes care of a lot of, it's really simple. So I actually have an account right here. You can kind of create an account, and when you create your account, you're given this little app ID here. What I'm going to do real quick is copy this, and I'm not too worried about you guys being like having access to this, or like, I know you guys can probably pause the video and like steal this. Again, this is like a trial app, and I'm not necessarily worried about that. But basically what you want to do is, once you create your Userbase account, you can grab this app ID, and what we're going to do is we are going to create a new file in our project root, a .env file, so we can actually store the value. And we're gonna prefix it with this next public thing, but then I'm just gonna name it Userbase app ID. And this next public is just a convention. What it does, it exposes this environment variable for you in your front end. And I can link you guys to some documentation on this later on, but all you need to really worry about is this .env file at the root of your project. And we just basically pasted this in here. And what that's going to do for us is, in this little, this magical app file that I just showed you guys, this is like the initialization file where whatever you need to do to set up your app, you're going to do it in here. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to grab this thing called useEffect from React. Don't worry too much about what like the nuances of use effect are. Like the React documentation is excellent, but essentially this is going to run whatever code we have in this function as soon as the function mounts. And what I want to do real quick is just console log that value, user base app ID. And then notice that there's this little process.env thing. Again, it's just kind of convention. Don't worry about the details of that. This is just kind of how you pull the value that you set here. So we're console logging this, and what I'm expecting now is for me to pull this up and see that value appear. Okay, so I'm getting it undefined. What I actually need to do is restart my dev server so that I can actually get that value. Then once it's restarted, I'm just gonna see, should see that value just pop up. Nice. So check that out. That's the value that I have in this file right here. And this is basically going to allow me to start interfacing with user base and access all of their functions. I'm just going to pull up this documentation right here. What I want to do is I want to keep a button here, but I don't want this link to GitHub and Docs. I want to basically have a sign up or a sign in button. I want to basically be able to create a user and then start doing interesting things with that user. One thing that is one thing about this Next.js Tailwind Starter is that the nav file right now, it's not abstracted away into some sort of central layout component. So what that means is I created, let me just show you guys. I created this little about page. I'm just going to show you guys something real quick. So we have to export this. And just return a quick little H1. So if I navigate to about, automatically, like you'll see that this page is configured, but then you also notice that I don't have that navigation there. So what we need to do is we need to kind of abstract this nav component into something that's common across all of the pages that we create. And that's a perfect use of this app, this little app file right here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to create another file under this components library called layout.js, and I'm going to just pull in the nav. Ooh, sorry. So we have the nav, and I'm going to basically return a div with the nav on top. Nav doesn't have any children. And then I'm going to destructure the children property from the props object and just render them over here. So once I have this little layout component, what I want to do is export default. I'm going to grab that and then I'm going to wrap my pages with it. Nice. Okay, so now we have this layout. So notice how now we have this double layout thing. That's only because in our index page, we also have this nav. So if I get rid of that, notice how the nav is still there, but then if we go to the about page, we have our nav there as well. Nice. So now we can work with this nav component and start adding some buttons that's going to help us actually create an account. So I'm going to first get rid of this and get rid of this map. And what I'm going to do instead is, so I also don't like this little link thing. So what I want to do is I want to create a button component. One thing that, the other thing about this Next.js Starter is that you see this button blue class. That's actually defined over here, this little .btn blue. And you notice that it has this apply directive. That's like Tailwind magic for combining all of these classes. But the nice thing about React is that we can actually just grab these classes and create a component that's a lot nicer than this class name. So what I'm just going to do is, because I like kind of these little styles, I'm just going to copy this real quick, and I'm going to create a button component, button.js.
Is it okay if I hop in here?
Yeah.
Cool. So I want to just break down a little bit of what's happening here for people who have like barely used JavaScript before, because I realize this might be a bunch. So kind of what we've done so far is with the .env, that was for an environment secret, just to keep our user base token in one place that we can use across the app. And then we use the next public to make it available like on our front end as well as on the back end. And so with React, the front end, instead of just writing pure HTML files, you write stuff that looks like HTML called JSX in these little blocks called components, which is what Alan's been building here, this button component and the nav component. And then with our pages, those are the different pages of the app. And so then we're sharing that same layout. And so then with these classes, this is just the same as writing class in your HTML and writing your own classes, and Tailwind is just providing those. And then the apply thing is just for combining them. So all we've gotten so far is just building some initial components out of these building blocks. And then later in our app, we'll be able to reuse them, like having the nav on every page and having a consistent button that we don't have to recode each time the way in HTML you would have to. So if you have questions, you can just pop them in the Zoom chat and I can reply, or we can ask Alan to explain things. So, but if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask, because we want this to be super accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's perfect. So all we did was basically, let's just take a look at that button component real quick. This is just a regular HTML button that you guys are probably used to. And these class names, the one nuance with React is that you'll notice that instead of class being lowercase, you'll see this little class name thing. And that's only because, like, in JavaScript, if you were to have like an element, you would actually access their properties with this kind of camel case style. It's just a React convention. Once you get used to that, it's pretty smooth sailing from there. It's literally like the same thing. It's just regular HTML. So we just threw these classes here. And again, like BG Blue 500, I'm just gonna go to Tailwind real quick and show you guys how I love Tailwind. Like, it's probably one of my favorite things. It's so simple. So BG Blue 500, like right here, it's so amazing because you have all these different shades of blue. Oh, and one thing I did want to mention is that I think Hack Club has their own theme, which is amazing.
Oh yeah.
This is the premise of what JavaScript and React actually allows you to do, is it allows you to create really consistent user interfaces with these components. Because when you start getting beyond basic styles, there's a lot of things to consider, like component state and accessibility and kind of dynamism, right? There's a lot to consider. And like, look at how polished and how many look at how configured this is. Like, there's so many awesome options. And like, if you guys ever want to do interesting projects for Hack Club, I think it would be pretty wise to kind of reuse the existing knowledge. And so this is using a framework called Theme UI. theme UI. It's pretty awesome. It's a CSS in JS solution, and it's one of those things that you'll come to terms with kind of when you start playing around with React, because there's a lot of options. It's really important in the beginning not to get overwhelmed with all of the different tools that are available in front of you. But once you kind of establish this intuition about what's available, what's out there, it's really fun because you'll naturally gravitate towards tools that make sense with you. I think theme UI and Hack Club's design system is just awesome. But to get started, I also think Tailwind is amazing. It's just really quick, and you'll see how it takes care of a lot of styling concerns for you. So we created this button component in our nav, and right now it literally does nothing. But what I like to do is a sanity check, right? A sanity check to console log stuff, make sure that buttons are all working. So I'm just gonna create a function right here so actually what I wanna do, when I click sign up and sign in, what I really wanna do is I wanna render some sort of modal to capture user information. Because if we go to this user base and we look at the sign up function right here, you'll see that it's a pretty simple API. And all it's expecting is basically a username and password. Once we give it those values, it'll basically create a user for us. So again, if we look at I think I'm logged in already. So if we look at this little trial app that I created, you'll see that I don't have any users right now. So what I want to do is I want to actually create one, like a fresh user. But so let's see. So what we can do is if I click on sign up, I can show a form. Yeah, I can basically show a form to capture that information. So what I'm actually going to do is create some state variables. And again, just follow along with me. You can read into the React documentation. It's pretty simple. Like it's really just getting used to the pattern. State just means like data, information. It's almost like a database for your front end. And React exposes ways for you to basically update data. So when you click around, you get that dynamism that users expect from JavaScript-driven apps. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, create a variable show sign up modal, and then set show sign up modal. Again, like when it comes to naming things, like sometimes, it's largely a matter of taste, but at the same time, like you want to be explicit enough where people reading your code and team members can follow easily. So we're going to create a modal for signing up and signing in. So let me just go ahead and create this little sign up and sign in. And the reason we're going to have two modals is really for simplicity's sake. In an ideal world, I would probably just have a single component and make sure kind of the state is uniform, because you don't want to repeat your code too much. But just for simplicity's sake and just to differentiate between the sign up and the sign in function, I think it's appropriate to have two different state values for this. So it's not a problem. So what I'm intending is when I click sign up for this modal to appear, but initially we're going to have this set to false. So let's actually think about what a form would look like. Tailwind has a really nice like login form with all of these styles kind of built in. So what I actually want to do, I'm just going to reuse this, which is so awesome. Just look at how I can kind of steal this right here. The one nuance is that you'll notice that this is pure HTML and it doesn't have its class name thing. So what I'm going to just do is HTML to JSX, just find this little converter thing. I'm going to go ahead and paste the Tailwind stuff right here. And boom, I get my JSX with the class name, and this is ready to go on React side of things. So what I'll do is create a component real quick, sign up modal. Nice. So I'm basically just returning just some JSX. It's literally nothing. There's no functionality here, but we want to see that, like, what this actually looks like. So what we'll do is we'll go back to our nav page, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to initially set this to true just to show you. In just a little bit, we're actually going to be able to toggle this by clicking on the button, but I just want to show you what rendering the modal would look like. Let me go ahead and import it.
If you're wondering about that blank tag that you just added on lines 13 and 28 there, that's called a fragment. And so it lets you return multiple HTML elements next to each other without wrapping them in a tag. So that's
that's basically like React specific stuff. I could have easily made it a div, but because of the fact that when you're developing React apps, it's very easy to get lost in this thing called div soup, where you have divs, nested divs everywhere. Just in general, if you can minimize the number of divs, it's just kind of, it makes your component tree a little cleaner. But yeah, as Lachlan was saying, this is just, it allows you to kind of group these components together. So this could easily be a div, so no worries there. So we have this little sign up modal thing. Let's see what this looks like. Nice. So we're rendering this right here. And what I actually want to do is only show this if this is set to true. So here, let me go ahead and make that if show sign up modal. So this this double ampersand thing is just like logical short circuiting. It basically means that if you have a truthy, if this value is truthy, then we're gonna just go ahead and render this. I could have easily made this like a ternary expression, like show sign up modal, and then if true, render this, or else null. But that's a little bit more verbose, and yeah, I think it's pretty, it's idiomatic to keep it, just use this little ampersand thing instead of a full ternary sometimes. So what we'll do is make sure that we render that if it's true. Let's see, show sign up modal, my bad. So this is supposed to be sign up modal. And if it's true, we're gonna render it. And if it's false, we're not gonna render it. So notice how now the rendering of that modal is dependent upon this value right here. So that's kind of the power of React, is like, we're gonna build upon this fundamental kind of abstraction of state and updating state to render different parts of our UI. Nice. So what I want to do is, if I click on sign up, I want to show the sign up modal. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass this on click prop. And we're going to set show sign up modal to be the opposite of the current. So let me go ahead and explain, you know, why we're doing it like this. So if we do it like that, that allow, let's see, sign up, set show sign up modal. Okay, so let's see, why is this not? Let me go ahead and do a quick sanity check real quick. So I'm going to when I click on the sign up button, let's just console log signing up. So it's not clicking for some reason. Okay, so why is it that I am clicking on here and it's not actually doing anything? Let's take a look at my button component. Nice. So it looks like I'm not grabbing the props and spreading them. So again, this is like a React thing, but I'm actually glad that I ran into this because now that we did that, we can see that there's some functionality happening. Whereas before doing this, it just wasn't doing anything. In React, every component basically accepts this props object right here. And those curly braces that you saw are basically destructuring everything, like the props from this this object right here. And so whenever we pass in anything like onClick or an attribute like color, anything we want, it's going to be accessible through the props object. So because of the fact that we had an onClick, let me go ahead and spread that. Because of the fact that we have an onClick over here, I want to make sure that that onClick gets passed properly to this button over here. Again, don't worry too much about specifics. These are not details that you should get caught up in. It's just something to be aware of, and you get familiar very quickly as you start developing React apps. So now that we have that established, if I click on sign up, notice how now we have the toggling functionality wired up to this sign up button. That's pretty awesome. And what I actually want to do is I want to do the same thing for this sign in button here. But notice how there's a couple of things that we want to do to the actual modal itself. So let's just go there real quick. So instead of sign in, first of all, I'm going to just copy this file real quick and rename this as sign in modal so that we have, because it's pretty much going to be more or less the same thing with a few differences in terms of which API functions we actually call. So we have a sign in modal and a sign up modal. Let's go back to the sign up modal and rename this real quick. We can get rid of this little copyright footer thing. Let's see, this little please choose a password. We can, so I actually really like this pattern of rendering errors in the UI. I'm just going to comment that for now. We might use that in just a little bit, but let me go ahead and get rid of this border right here. Okay, nice. So we have sign up and then also forgot password. I'm just going to comment that out for now. Nice. So we have this little sign up thing. What I want to do is actually add a little sanity check for that button.
Just as a time check, where it's about like 30 minutes in, so we're thinking like about halfway through the coding, or maybe a little more.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So do we have like a strict 1 hour allotted for this? Or?
We don't. We can totally stay longer. I was planning for this to be like about an hour, but I think if people are interested, we can go longer. But
yeah, how are you guys feeling? Because basically at this stage, we're really at the beginning of this, and I really want to show you guys at least the process of you know, creating a user. And I think once we create the user, you'll understand how to wire up user base. What I really wanted to do is maybe get into a full stack application, but let's see how far we can get. Let's actually create the user. Let's get the login, the log out. Let's get everything kind of wired up, and I think that'll be a comfortable place where maybe I can do Q&A, or maybe we can move forward with the app.
Well, people seem to be cool with going a little late, so
yeah,
let's
nice.
go for it. I mean, obviously, you're welcome to dip in or out whenever you have to. Also,
Okay.
Microphone's creating a lot of noise.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because I think user base particularly is like a really empowering technology. Like I just feel like when I found out about this and like how you can create full stack apps just from the client side, I was like blown away. So I want to let you guys walk away with this toolkit. I think it's really empowering product. And then tomorrow, after you guys watch the Next.js Conf videos, I think you guys are gonna be super pumped to just whip out side projects like there's no tomorrow. So we have this sign up function. I'm just gonna log, do a sanity check, and do sign up. I'm gonna pass. VS Code is tripping. Okay, it's because of this. Nice. So I'm gonna pass that over to this button right here. On click again. Sign up. And notice right now, like this is just a regular HTML button, and we're not using our button over here. And that's only because we basically copied this thing from Tailwind. In fact, we probably, here, one thing I do want to point out, I really like this button because notice this hover thing. This is a perfect opportunity to tell you guys an important aspect of hovering on mobile. So hovering on mobile is horrible because if you hover on mobile, what it's going to do is when you click on this button, it's like you have to double click it basically. Like you click on it and it'll turn dark blue, and then when you click it again, it'll actually do the UI. That's perfect UI for desktop, but on mobile, you don't really want that behavior. Like you click it and you want it to do what it's supposed to do. So the nice thing about Tailwind is if you want to restrict styles to the desktop, all you have to do is like this thing right here. For LG, for large, that what this means is that I only want the following styles: hover, blue background, on large screen. So notice how as soon as I added this, no longer is there a hover for a small screen, whereas as I increase my viewport size, boom. And that's just magic to me. 2 letters, it just works. That's awesome. Cool. So like now we're gonna move on to so let's see. So what we're gonna do is we want to actually sign up. So let's click on this button, and okay, the button is working as expected. What I'm actually gonna do is in my app, I'm going to create a state variable for a user to actually hold on to the user once I create it. And this user, I'm actually going to pass this user and the set user function down my component tree, because what I want to do is once I actually have a user, I don't actually want to render this little Next.js plus Tailwind thing. I want to react to the fact that I have a user. So what I'm going to do is it's going to pass down user. And right now this is going to be like false or undefined. But I want to pass that down as well as the function for setting users. So like once we create the user, we can call this function. It'll actually update this user at the top level of our application, and it'll be available everywhere else. And this is a very kind of naive way of managing state. There's some more complicated ways to use like context and stuff with React, but I think for our purposes, this is perfect. So we're gonna have user just available in our component tree, and let's go back to the nav. Let's see what I want to do. So notice right now the sign up button works, but not the sign in button. So similarly, just want to do that real quick. Set show sign in modal instead of sign up modal. And also what I want to do is if I click the sign up modal, I want to set show sign in modal to false. And I also want to set show sign up modal to false. And I want to render show sign in modal when you click on it, let me just go ahead and import it. Let's see. So my sign in modal so I'm using the button component here. So this should have rendered sign in modal. Let's see. So I'm wondering why that didn't work with the other way. Oh, okay. I think that's because, let me see. Okay, so I think I was calling this Boolean operator on the function instead of the actual state variable itself. So we have this kind of working now. I want to make sure that the sign in modal is also ready to go. Nice. And then again, we're going to get rid of the hover on small screens. And okay, so now let's just get right into the sign up. What I want to do is I want to actually capture the information that I put into this form into a username and a password variable, and then I'm going to pass that into this user-based function. So actually, so this one's going to be sign in modal. I need to make sure I'm on the sign. Make sure these names are consistent. All right, so in the sign up modal, what I want to do is have a state variable for the username. And for the password, and I'm going to make the value of this input set to the username. And then as that value changes, I'm going to set the username. This e.target.value, that's just like DOM stuff. Don't worry too much about that. Just basically grabs the value as soon as you start typing. And then for the password, I'm going to do the same thing. And on change, okay, nice. So let's just use state is not defined, right? Because we did not import it. And that's another cool thing about Next.js is like as you're developing your app, notice how I'm not even refreshing the browser and it's actually informing me of my errors as I run into them. And I think that's really powerful to get that kind of live feedback. It makes developing a lot more easy. So, okay, so now this input component looks the same as it did, except for one really important thing. In the React side of things, notice that, you know, as I make changes, you'll see that this little state variable is actually being updated. And that's really important, because now that means that we have access to these values. We can actually pass them in to our function, our user base function. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and import user base real quick. Oh, and I actually need to add user base.
By the way, Alan, we can't see you anymore. I guess the light went out.
Oh, you know, I'm so, give me 1 second. That light turn on. I literally just turned down. It's the nice natural sunset. Awesome. So nice. Now we have user base, and actually what we need to do is crucial, is to actually initialize user base with this value when the app starts up. So what I'm going to do is import user base right here. And just gonna user base init. Nice. And the reason I knew about these user base init thing is because, again, in the docs, boom, init. Really simple. App ID. We have our app ID right there. That's pretty much all that's needed to just get user base working, which is awesome. And actually, we don't need to really console log this anymore. Nice. So user beta is available. I added. I'm just going to go ahead and start my dev server again. My sign up modal. Now I can actually call user base. One thing that I do want to do though is I want to pass the set user function down here. So I'm just going to pull this from nav, and then I'm also actually going to read the user prop and grab that from. So again, layout has user and set user because we are passing user and set user. And I'm going to pass user and set user down my tree.
In that last file, you had a typo capitalization of the hook.
Oh, did I? In right here? Or which file?
Yeah, on line 16 there.
Oh, nice. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So now that we're passing it down to nav, we have it available in nav. And what I want to do is once we actually, hit this sign up button, I want to pass this down, and I want to react to this. So once I sign up, this user object, which is undefined right now, it's going to actually be populated. So actually, in preparation for that, let me just go ahead real quick and notice that in our app.js, we're also passing down user to all of our pages. This component basically represents all of the pages that go under this directory. So in our index page, I can just go ahead and pull user out from there. And what I want to do is, if the user exists, I basically want to, whoa, my VS Code is trip. Okay, so what I want to do is, I want to say hi to that user. I want to grab that user's username, and just like say hi. And then if I don't have a user, I basically just want to, render this right here. Let's see. Okay, nice. So right now, so let's just say I had, so before we actually go ahead and create the user base account, what I just want to show you real quick is if I set this user object to something with like username, I'm just going to Lachlan, nice. Then boom, like hi Lachlan, right? But if I don't do anything, then it's going to render the default string, which is awesome. Like, so again, like notice how the word react means like, like we're reacting to this data as it changes. So that's pretty cool. So we know that that's going to work. So initially, again, we have this user thing is undefined. As we pass it down our component tree, we want to make sure that that gets updated with the user that we create. So in my sign up modal, that's where the action is going to be for this. And just to confirm again, this button is going to do something. Now I can, whoops. And we also confirmed that the state is being updated properly for the input components. It's going to do this try and if I run into an error, just okay. So this try catch thing, it's just like error handling in JavaScript. It's just one of those things that you get familiar with as you write more code. So right here, we pretty much, if we go back to the user base docs on signing up, that's pretty much all it wants. It wants the username, wants the password, and then if it's successful, it's basically going to return the user to you. So if we get the user, we want to do a couple things. First, we want to log out the user so we can see what it looks like. And we also want to actually set the user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the set user prop down. And over here, I can read from that set user. And let's just go ahead and set the user with the user. Just like that. And we're just going to try it out and see what happens. If anything goes wrong, we have this nice little catch clause right here to let us know what went wrong. If everything is successful, we're going to be able to log out the actual user and see the properties there. And also we're going to be able to set our object. So the only next thing to do is to actually like create Lachlan. And I'm just going to make the password like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, E. So sign up. Ooh, we ran into an error. That's awesome. Okay, so user base is not defined. That's because I'm not importing it. Import user base from user base JS. All right, so let's just try this one more time. Nice. So notice that we did sign up. We signed up and we get this little auth token, creation date, user ID, and a username. Now, a couple of things here. The UI didn't necessarily give me feedback, and it's good practice to have loading states. So as you are signing up or writing something to a database, you want to give some visual feedback. Because notice when I clicked sign up, it paused for like a quick second, and there would be no way for the users to know if the app is broken or not. But for our purposes, we created a user right now. We can see that Lachlan is created right here. It's pretty awesome. And what we're gonna do now is I'm not gonna worry too much about the loading states for now, but what I will do is actually, before I try signing up, I'm just gonna do this little signing up. just for, again, for a sanity check. But nice, we know that that works now. And we have Lachlan here. But now what we want to do is we also want to have a log out button. So if we have a user, we don't want to render this sign up, sign in. We actually don't even want to render this modal. Instead, we want to render a logout button. So let's tackle those things. So if I go to nav, in my sign up modal, what I want to do is actually, I want to pass down a way for me to close my modal when I create a user successfully. So I'm going to pass down this set show sign up modal state updater, set show sign up modal, sign up modal. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure I pull that in. And I'm going to set it to false just to close out that modal once I'm actually signed in. And then the other thing is, if I have a user, this user is populated, then I don't want to render these buttons. I instead want to just render a single logout button. So what I'll do is, if the user is, if we don't have a user, then we can go ahead and render this unordered list tree, or else we can render a single button for logging out. And we can just go ahead and this, oh, again, so it's that fragment. Wait a minute, is it a fragment thing? UL, looks like this is an extra UL. Actually, so if I don't have a user, I want to render this UL right here. Or else a regular button. User is not defined. Oh, what happened here? Okay, so let's see. Let me just do something real quick to test this. So if I do true, okay, again, so we have this wired up. So if we actually get the user populated, we're gonna get this little logout thing. So I believe I am still signed in. So let's just go ahead and add some functionality to this logout button real quick and try to get user base to log out if we click. Create a little logout function or sign out.
So I've actually never used this trick of putting a hook for a state in app. Does that mean that the state is going to transfer from one page to the next? It's kind of a like global.
Yeah, it's like a top. Yeah. So it'll be available across your app. So it's basically like a really it's a contrived example, but it works really well. Like for simple apps, like it works because this user, at least for this app, it's central. Like you want to be able to render certain things when the user is logged in. and not render certain things when otherwise. This just makes it easy to pass this down. In fact, if you really wanted to have this structured in a more clean way, you would probably use like SWR or use context, something like that. But it's totally fair game to use it in app.js, and this is usually how I structure for really simple apps.
Yeah, so if you wanted to make like a little dark mode toggle or something, that would be a great
Oh
thing
yeah,
to share that would
perfect.
then
Yeah,
go
absolutely,
over across pages.
absolutely. Yep. So let's see this little. Okay, so I have a little syntax here. Oh yeah. Okay, so sign out. I'm just gonna keep this simple. Sign out, and I want so the user base doc says to sign out. You just call sign out, and that's it. So what we'll do is just gonna do a sanity check. Signing out, and if we get into an error, we will throw it on the screen. Okay, cool. So let's see what that's looking. Oh, so then the next thing we want to do is we want to do a. Actually, you know what? I think because we're signed in already, let me just force this state real quick. How do you sign out? So user base is not defined here. Okay, so it signed out successfully, but I'm forcing this state right here. I just wanted to confirm. Okay, so now we already, so watch this. So if I try to sign up again with Lachlan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, E. Username already exists. That's perfect. That's true. And again, like because we're iterating on this app, ideally we wouldn't just throw errors like this on the screen. What we want to do is we would want to, for example, have a nice little thing over here that says, Lachlan already exists, choose a different username. But for the sake of time, we just want to see that this app actually works. So nice. So now that we have Lachlan, we just need to add some sign in functionality now. We already have the sign up functionality. So let's go ahead and go ahead and flesh out the rest. So what we want to pass down to our, okay, so in our sign in, we also want to capture the same state that we did for our sign up, just for our username and password. So we're going to do import use state from React. And again, grab these values. And the value of this will be bound to username. And then as we change it, we're going to set the username. And we're going to do the same for password. Okay, and then again, we want a quick sanity check. So I'm just gonna real quick do this little signing in. And I'm going to pass that over to button. So as you click, nice. So okay, so we have the console log showing, signing in. And now what we want to do is also just confirm that the React state is updating. So Lachlan, and there we go, nice. now, similarly, we just import user base again. Let's catch the error, throw it on the screen for now. And we're gonna try to sign in with these values. Once we get the user, we're just gonna, log it out for sanity. And also, more importantly, we need to set the user accordingly. So if I go back to the nav, I want to pass. Oh, interesting. I think I undid. Okay, so set user needs to be passed down to both. Set user needs to be set to both, and then also again we need to close the modals as well. So set show sign up modal. I have a syntax error where.
Just missing a slash there.
Oh yeah, nice. Okay, and then over here, just set show sign in modal. Because of this VS Code is killing me today. Okay, so now that we have set user being passed down to sign in modal, what we can do is make sure that once we have the user, we set the user. But then we also want to close the modal. And just confirming that it's the same. Okay, so nothing changed over here, we're good. Okay, so I'm just gonna try signing in again. And after I sign in, what I'm expecting to happen to my UI is it to say hi Lachlan again and this modal to close. So we're gonna sign in. Nice. So we have hi Lachlan and we're gonna sign out. Signing out. Oh no. Okay, so what did we miss on the sign out side of things? So clearly it says signing out, and also we didn't run into an error. This is more of a user error, but that's why it's important to kind of log everything out. So what we're doing here is we are indeed signing out, but we are not setting the user to false. So what we need to do is set user to false. Let's see, to refresh this. Okay, so let's just go through this flow again. We have Lachlan, and we're gonna log in with him. I'm gonna sign in, and we're greeted. Now we're gonna sign out, boom. And that's awesome. And let's just create one more account. We'll do code G. Yo123, sign up. Oh no, username already exists. I knew I cleared the database, so there's no way. So Lachlan is here. code, it's saying code tree exists, so that's kind of strange to me. Let's try a different name. It's gonna do Minji. I hope I'm spelling that right. Is it with a J or a G?
GJ.
GJ, okay. Minji, and then Yo-Yo123. So signing up. I'm in G. Nice. Don't know why they didn't let code tree through, because maybe it's because, I don't know. No clue. Nice. But now we have Minji. We have sign out. Oh, so sign out, but then we didn't clear. Okay, so the other thing that we want to do is we only want to show the modal if we have no user. Only time we want to show the modal. Just confirm this one last time.
Just as a quick time check, maybe we wrap up coding in like 15-ish minutes and then have another 15-ish minutes of Q&A.
Yeah, I think this, we got the whole sign up flow. This is relatively where I wanted to get to. I think we actually covered a lot, more so related to React than some of the advanced features of Next.js. But I would love to see if anybody has questions right now, because I think Next.js is pretty, like, there's a lot to learn, and it's important that you learn things incrementally. And let me just show, before I kind of hand it over to Q&A, I want to show you guys that in our documentation, like it's pretty comprehensive. So you can, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. But what I really want to highlight to you guys is to check out nextjs.org/learn, because what it's going to do is it's going to take you through step by step kind of how to set up Next.js from the command line, and walk you through concept by concept how to, until you end up finishing creating a blog. So I think that's a great way to kind of dig in. I guess the last thing that I want to show you guys is, I guess, deploying this to Vercel, right? Like, now that we created this little mini login functionality, let's see if, like, what it's like to actually get this onto Vercel. And so it's working on localhost, but let's see this actually like work on the internet, right? So let's see. Are people comfortable with GitHub and the command line, or what would you say? Because I can go two ways. I can show the GitHub way, or I can show the CLI way.
I think a lot of folks are using a tool like Replit and could push to GitHub directly from there. So why don't you just show GitHub, since
Nice. Yeah. So GitHub is awesome. So check this out.
And people want the source code of your demo, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Perfect. So what you guys can actually do is take it from where I am, and then your homework will be to do the CRUD stuff, to use user base. Now that you have a user created, play with the database and actually start creating stuff. So let me just go ahead and scan on GitHub, create a new repo for this thing. New repo. Make it tech club full stack Next.js plus user base demo for tech club. Nice. Cool. Public repository. Ooh, whoops. Oh, the other cool thing about Next.js is, like, it has this nice .gitignore file built in if you use the create next app thing. So, like, you don't have to accidentally check in like node modules and stuff, which is really awesome. So I'm just gonna add everything. Nice, and then let's see why. Oh, okay, well, wonder if I have to do this. Oh, okay, because of main. Right. Okay, so this is actually a new thing that GitHub did, which is actually awesome because terminology should move towards inclusivity where possible. So I'm actually really happy. That's awesome. So nice. So now we pushed this up, and okay, we have the Tailwind example. Now, what I want to do is Vercel. It just talks Git. That's it's so easy, right? Like we have this URL right here. I'm gonna go to check this out. Deploy.new. I don't know if you guys know about this, but it's a nice little alias, right?
I'm gonna use that every day.
Yeah, deploy.new because deployments are only associated with Vercel from here on out. So now we're gonna just paste in our, and the nice thing is that if you go through this import flow, even if you don't have an account already created with Vercel, it'll just literally walk you through the onboarding of creating an account while still remembering the actual GitHub repo that you're trying to deploy. And after you create your account, it'll continue as you're expecting. So that's nice.
Gorgeous.
Hack Club full stack. So it already detected its Next.js app. There's nothing to do there, but notice how it'll automatically kind of detect all of these different front-end frameworks, but Next.js for the win, right, guys? And then here's the important part. So in this flow, remember that we did add an environment variable. We added next public user base app ID. So if you guys want to fork this successfully, you will need to, create that user base account. But that's pretty much it. After you get the account and you get this little app ID thing in your import flow, you can just go ahead and paste this right in. And notice how it'll be encrypted by default. And there we go. And that's pretty much it. I don't need to configure anything else for like the build or output settings. It's just good as it is. And we will deploy, and let's watch this thing deploy. So if all goes well, this thing was working successfully on localhost. And if what we're expecting is this is for it to work successfully when deployed as well without any issues, because we did supply the environment variables in the import flow, and it should just work out of the box.
Vercel unfortunately doesn't pay me to say this, but they have the fastest deploys anywhere. Our website deploys in like 20 seconds. It's the best.
Yeah, I mean, we're like nice. So it works as expected. But so on build speeds, like I think it's a pursuit that we're always trying to optimize because we're not satisfied with 20 seconds, right? Like we're going after millisecond builds, right? Like we're not going to rest until when you deploy something, it's just like instant. And so we really appreciate that, Lachlan. We fast build speeds and kind of speed and performance everywhere is really what we strive for. But yeah, the journey has really just begun. So nice. So we got this little congratulations thing, and what I'm expecting is to be able to sign in as Lachlan and Minji. So Lachlan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, E. Nice, no errors. And if we sign out, and we're just going to sign in with Minji, Minji, and yo, 1, 2, 3. Boom. Hi, Minji. And there we go, guys. That was awesome. And like just real quick, user base. Again, it's amazing because we only really covered these 3 functions, and even in sign up and sign in, there's a lot more options like remember me, session length, and there's just a lot, but at the same time, it's very simple. So it has forgot password stuff built in. So again, you don't have to set up like an express server or any of that stuff to do anything complicated for this stuff. You can update the user, you can delete the user, and when it comes to actually creating database resources like notes or images or friends or, really interesting stuff like that, you really need to just worry about the set of data operations, and it's pretty much it. You can share databases, and then here payments like Stripe is pretty much built in here. So I haven't really seen a product that combines like, authentication, data, payments, and it's end-to-end encrypted. Like that's the crazy part about this. Like it literally encrypts your data. So we kind of walked through a taste of Next.js and React and how easy it is to kind of develop locally, and as you're developing, getting real-time feedback on your UI, on the progress that you're making. And as you iterate on it, as you run into bugs, you fix the bugs and you see that it works, and you never really have to refresh your browser too often. And once you're done and you're happy with something, boom, you push it to the internet. And if you want to make changes, you just make a new branch. Here, let's just do that real quick. Let me show you guys just real quick, and I'll pass it off to Q&A. So if I go to Vercel.com, I'll see Hack Club Full Stack, and boom, we have a single deployment right here. But if let's just create a new branch, and in that new branch, I'm just gonna make some quick CSS changes. So I'm just gonna create new branch, CSS changes. Let me fire up my local host again. And instead of these blue buttons, maybe what's your favorite color, Lachlan? Is it red?
Sure.
Nice, okay, so, because Hack Club, Hack Club in red, so it's made that selection. Awesome, so BG, Tailwind, I'm telling you, this combination of Next.js, Tailwind, and user base is too good. Like all I have to do is, boom, background red, my buttons are changed. Let's see, this link right here, boom, single word. We like red, and what we're gonna do is let's commit those changes. We like red, and push those up to the CSS origin branch. And if I go to GitHub real quick, we'll see let's see, updated 14 seconds ago. So boom, it's up there. Let's go to Vercel, and boom, like it's just there. It's building now, so it shouldn't take too long. Oh, it's already ready, guys. It didn't even really, like 15 seconds. That's awesome. So if I go to deployments,
isn't updating for me.
Oh,
like it's just paused.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. I think it paused.
Okay, we're good.
Well, nice. So now we have this this preview URL automatically generated. Here's the more memorable preview URL. Notice how it has Hack Club Full Stack, which is the name of your project, Git, and then the name of your branches. So as you're kind of iterating on your product and you want to share your changes with your team members, it's so easy to pass around these links. And then remember that like your main app it's still not merged in. So this was our main branch. And let's just say we like the red changes and we want to merge it to master. Let me just go ahead and make a quick PR. We do like red. And I'm gonna just go ahead and merge the pull request, confirm. And let's see. Now notice how like my production URL, it's updated. And there was no further like configuration required. Like when you merge it to GitHub, it's gonna merge it on Vercel and take it to production. So that's pretty much it for me. I mean, there's so much more to cover as far as the breadth of Next.js and what's really possible with these technologies. But I think tomorrow you guys will really be able to see how some really big companies are using Next.js. And yeah, I think I'll open the floor for Q&A. Let me just stop sharing my screen.
Amazing. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure. Oh, there's like 80 things in the Zoom chat. I didn't even wow. So I was
Oh
not
yeah,
even
we
paying
can talk
attention.
away.
Okay, so nice. Does anybody if anybody has questions, I would love, like, you can unmute yourself and ask away. Do we have any questions?
I was wondering, how does Userbase compare to something like Firebase, for example?
Firebase is pretty cool. Userbase is newer on the block. I think Firebase, it has a lot of functionality. Firebase is really, it's honestly amazing. It's a great tool. It's production ready. So if you start with a simple app, like, you can really scale well with Firebase. What I like about Userbase though is how simple it is. Like, if you go to Firebase docs, you'll see so much, and it's really easy to get lost in kind of all of the power that's available to you. But if that's okay with you and you're not able to get lost, I think Firebase is awesome. It works really well. What I like about Userbase though is, again, like how it combines authentication and your database, as well as payments, and it's end-to-end encrypted, which is pretty sick. And I don't think Firebase does that. So
Definitely not.
yeah.
I mean, it's Google. So.
Yeah. So I like simplicity. So Userbase is cool. It's a new product. But again, I think if for your the free tier, you're only able to have a single trial app with 3 free users. But if you want to kind of unlock more storage and more users, unlimited users, you have to pay about $49 a year. So that's another thing to consider with Userbase.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
What do you think about something like Blitz Js? Because I was playing around with that the other day. It looked really cool.
What is that?
Blitz Js?
Oh, Blitz. Yeah. So Blitz is awesome. Blitz is like, it's built on top of Next.js, but it does a lot of cool stuff with Prisma to kind of generate your backend data models and stuff. I personally haven't played with it, but actually, before getting into Next.js, I did play around with Ruby on Rails, and I was more familiar with Rails. And I think Blitz JS is a pretty cool attempt to bring kind of your data models and stuff and kind of create a lot of boilerplate for you. So I think it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I've done a bit of Rails, and it's like very similar in like goals and ideas and stuff. Yeah, Blitz is really cool. Just being able to use like a Postgres database. I don't know how you pronounce that. Like with Postgres, Next and everything. Super cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, exactly. So when you really want to use a solid like relational database like MySQL or Postgres or something, I think Blitz is a great option for you. Yeah.
Cool. So I have a question. Real quick, there's a question in the chat. So can Vercel handle service worker and build a PWA?
Yeah, absolutely, because that's all client-side concerns. So if you want to use a service worker, you could, anything that you can do on the client side, you can, like, it's fair game with Vercel. The one caveat or like thing that I do want to point out when it comes to service workers and caching is that if you don't get the caching strategies right, it might bite you, right? So like you might run into issues where your data is stale and you're constantly like refreshing the browser and like you're getting old data and you're not able to easily debug why. Those are some issues that pop up pretty frequently when you're working with service workers, but yeah, absolutely. I think Svelte uses it by default, and PWA is like, yeah, like you can totally use any technology you want for that.
Cool. And then a personal question, like, so whenever Hack Club has like a guest, I always like read into them. So I know that you've been doing this for a long time, and the point of Vercel and Next is sort of to be like building the new standard for like technology that like Silicon Valley and like software engineers are using. So my question is, like, when you first started, like, what was the dominant like technology? Like, what was everybody using? Like, what was the hot thing on the market?
Yeah, so what's really interesting, I'm really glad you actually asked that question, because Next.js is really what launched me headfirst into the front end. So before that, I was literally doing Ruby on Rails. Like that was my go-to. PHP wasn't like my thing. What I loved about Rails was that you can really define your data models, and like it had a lot of these concerns taken for you. So that was like my go-to choice. But because Rails is so it's so heavy, like it gives you a lot of power, But again, like you have to be worried about the database. You have to be worried about routing and your controllers and all of these different things. And if you can work with that, it's great. But then it was 2017 where I saw Guillermo kind of introduce Next.js to the world. And it was actually my first time getting introduced to React as well. Like I had heard about React, but I never jumped in. I was just kind of aware of the technology, right? I saw some posts on Hacker News. I've been to the landing page a couple times. And what's interesting is that with Rails, I was familiar with the term MVC, right? Like model view controller. And then React's original landing page was like, it's just concerned with like the view layer, right? And I was like, how does that even work? Like, like this whole like, how does that even fit into an app? Like, and then slowly I started understanding what it's like to really put the front end in the front seat. And so with Next.js and in the early days of React, it was really tough because you had to learn about Webpack and you had to learn about Babel and you had to there was no easy way to get into React. Even like what's interesting is that Create React app actually came out around the same time as Next.js. But even at that point, like Next.js was killing it because it had the whole file-based routing, isomorphic JavaScript, server rendering, all these advanced concepts. And like, there was just so much to dig into. But I guess to answer your question, yeah, like before Next.js, Rails was really popular. I think Rails is still popular, but even people who use Rails now, I see a lot of people use it for just mainly the API layer. So like Rails supports an API only mode where they basically scaffold out your whole DB and, it spits out JSON instead of HTML, and then you can read that from your front end. So again, like Next.js is really like, and React in general, right? Like Next.js basically makes it really easy to consume React. But I think React is like amazing technology because you're able to name patterns of UI and just like, and just use those names, right? Like if Lachlan creates this super dope slider carousel component, I could just import it and then boom, it just works, right? And so yeah, I think before Next.js, before React, people used all sorts of things. But I think as we're heading into this new generation of consuming these backend services, Next.js is really, and React, and like, Nuxt and a lot of these things. And actually Nuxt was inspired by Next.js. It's pretty much like Next.js for the Vue world. When it comes to considering React versus Vue or Svelte, it's very easy to get caught up into like rabbit holes and like, spend a lot of time comparing the different frameworks. But for me personally, React is just a very natural programming model. The way that data flows through your app, the way that it, the way it's just easy for me to work with. And I think Next.js makes it just a pleasure, honestly. Like I really enjoy working on the front end with Next.js.
Yep, I do too.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, do we get even the smallest preview of what's to come tomorrow?
Well, if you go to Next, let's see, I think the conference schedule is up.
It is.
Conf/schedule. Yeah, so the conference schedule is up. That's all I can, here, let me drop a link in the chat.
Are you sure you can't share like any secrets?
I cannot. I'll be fired. I promise you guys. But it's gonna be epic, like absolutely epic. Like I think you guys will be so blown away. The thing about Next.js is it optimizes a lot for you. Like as you saw, right? Like I built this app from scratch, and maybe many of you didn't really have a lot of React knowledge, right? Maybe some of you did, and maybe some of you only knew like HTML and CSS, but as you saw, I was really only composing class names. And yes, there were some things like updating state and some weird React things that you might have to learn. But other than that, I think the framework is simple, but then once it's deployed, it is literally optimized, right? There's so much that I didn't even have to do, yet I know that that app that I've deployed across the world at this point, because once you deploy to Vercel, it's distributed globally. That app is ready for the big leagues. Just a small example of an optimization that's done is intelligently deciding not to polyfill modern browsers. And what that means is in like Internet Explorer and some of the older browsers, there's certain APIs that are not available. And so in order for your code to not break, you're basically implementing those APIs in a snippet of JavaScript, which basically lets those browsers take advantage of these new APIs. But the thing about it is that it ends up becoming a lot of JavaScript. And so if you're shipping that much JavaScript, you want to reduce it as much as possible. You want to ship as less JavaScript, as few assets as possible, so that, if you're on a low bandwidth phone connection or what have you, your app can be delivered as fast as possible. And so for modern browsers, it's not needed to send that extra JavaScript, because those APIs already exist. And so Next.js is able to understand, okay, this is a new Chrome browser, this is modern Firefox, or this is modern Safari. We don't have to bundle this. Whereas, okay, if you're developing like an internal app, for example, like a lot of, like in the corporate world, things move kind of slow, right? So like you'll find that people still are maybe using older versions of Internet Explorer in like an internal network, and maybe they're deciding to experiment with cutting edge technology. So maybe they're using Next.js, but then it would be horrible if they're using Next.js and they weren't able to take advantage of modern APIs. And so for those older browsers, Next.js, makes sure that they're able to still participate. That's like a really small example. Jaylen, thank you. And I know people are kind of hopping up, so thank you all for joining. I'm still ready to chat for a little bit longer, but if you guys got to go, thank you so much for joining, and I really hope you guys can attend the conference tomorrow. Again, if you can't because of school, it'll be ready to watch pretty soon after.
Yeah, I actually can't attend school tomorrow because of the conference. So.
Oh, nice. Hey, I love it. No, it's knowledge, right? I think this is fundamentally career-changing knowledge. I think like it was Zane, right? Zane, did you say that?
Zane, yeah.
Dude, I think tomorrow's going to be a jam-packed day of knowledge and education. It's not like you're skipping school to just play video games, right? Like,
yeah,
you're learning something that can fundamentally empower you for your career. So
yeah, I was lucky enough to go to a
Vercel event. You gotta skip school.
Yeah.
No, seriously, Apple. Yeah, I was lucky enough to attend React Conf 2 years ago when they introduced like hooks and everything.
Oh, nice.
On the like youth scholarship. And so that was such a transformative thing. Like, obviously, I'm gonna be there tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Like it's gonna be sick. I'm super pumped about it. Maybe it'd be interesting. Like Lachlan, if I don't know, we could set something up maybe after the conf. I can definitely follow up with whoever wants some Next.js. I mean, I'm in the Hack Club Slack anyways, so
we'll
be there, guys.
It's all happening there.
Yeah, we're gonna have a Hack Club channel in the Next.js Discord too. So.
Nice,
cool.
Nice.
Thank you so much for running this.
Oh,
yes.
Hey, I'm not a good public presenter, right? So like it's hard for me to get up here, but I enjoy it, right? Like I enjoy it. I mean, like it's like we had a little bit of hiccups here and there, but Lachlan had my back. If it wasn't for Lachlan, I probably would have had a nervous anxiety attack. But I'm glad I'm glad you guys were able to enjoy it.
Amazing. Yeah. Cool. Well, and then, I mean, if we wanted to, we could run one of these every night for like 3 weeks and still not cover all of Next features. So.
Yeah, exactly. So for the 10 of you that are here, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Next.js. So we got some veterans here, but for the newcomers, please go to the nextjs.org documentation. I mean, we work really hard to make sure that the documentation is kept up to date, it's comprehensive enough, and in fact, like if something is confusing, we do have feedback components, and like just ping me on Hack Club Slack, or but the documentation is really where to go to really see the power of it. And then nextjs.org/learn. It's like a gamified experience, which is really cool. So like as you progress through the different modules, you get like little points and stuff. Yeah, for sure. And then user base, again, like as an engineer, you want to just basically get in the habit of learning to read the documentation. Like even when it comes to getting, like whenever you're stuck on something, you're always gonna, like there's enough support out there in the world. But what's gonna make it a lot easier for you is like if you've already looked at the documentation, given some thought, probably like 8 or 9 times out of 10 the documentation should help you, but at least you'll be able to show, like communicate what you've done, what aspects of the documentation you've looked at and where you're stuck. And so documentation, like all day, like I'm always looking at documentation as I code, constantly looking up Tailwind class names here and there, looking up errors in my console, right, that are coming from different libraries and different frameworks that are cryptic. And so you got to understand that there's no such thing as rock star developers that just fly through stuff. I mean, yes, after you have acquired somewhat familiarity, and like once you're familiar with a certain type of error, for example, most likely you're going to know how to react and solve that error next time you see it. But you're not going to be able to do that unless you initially solved it, right? And then after you initially solve that error, you're going to have another error. And so as you continue working and building out your career, you're just going to, become more fluid as you move on. But documentation, and looking stuff up, that's an important part of our job, and, nothing to be ashamed of. So don't let imposter syndrome and here's the other thing. Let me tell you guys this. When I first found out about Zeit, it used to be called Zeit before Vercel. Some of you might know that. But when I first had discovered it, I fell in love with the company, right? I fell in love with the design, fell in love with the products, and it was a much smaller team at that time. I remember going to the About page and looking at the team and being so intimidated by how talented these individuals were. And I was like, dude, I want to join this company, but like, I don't know, like I'm nowhere near any of these people, like Guillermo, author of Socket.io, and like just the list goes on, right? Like we have so many talented people. And Kazawa, he also worked on Socket.io, and he's just a genius. Like just everyone had some sort of really impressive open source accolade behind their belt. And I just looked at that apply button, and it literally said, when in doubt, just apply. Like it said all the things that they were looking for, but when in doubt, just apply. And I still didn't apply at that moment because I was like, I'm not going to burn my bridge. I'm not going to just be some random email that lost in the sauce. Like, what differentiates me? So what I did was, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to get familiar with these technologies. I'm going to, be a part of the community, and we'll see, And I did end up taking a boot camp. So I signed up for Lambda School. And in my case, like I ended up like dropping out of college and like a lot of different things. Like in my situation, Lambda School was a great opportunity for me just to kind of fill in some gaps in knowledge that I had, as well as get exposure and have a platform where people can actually appreciate, the knowledge that I learned. And as soon as I did that, there was an opportunity on Twitter where Guillermo was, he tweeted out that Zeit was hiring across the board for junior engineers and senior engineers and everybody. And as soon as I saw that magic keyword, junior engineer, I was like, all right, I'm hopping on, because out of all the junior engineers, I know I'm the most passionate. I know I got a lot to offer. Like I'm ready. I'm the best junior engineer. So I basically DM'd Guillermo, and kind of like we went on a little trial project, and kind of the rest is history. But the reason I say this is because passion counts. Passion counts, and Next.js is very empowering technology. Like it's like you're gonna be able to do something with your passion very quickly. You're gonna be able to show something for that passion. You're gonna be able to get a side project up behind the URL where, you know, you can show an employer, you can show somebody that, hey, I have ideas and I can put them out in the world. And so I think it's just, again, like I said, a great time to be in web development. Yeah, and also don't ever be afraid to apply to, like, you know, companies that you're really, really passionate about and excited to work for.
Yeah. +1 to all that. Okay. Well, it's been 2 hours now, so I think we will wrap things up. Thank you so much for being here,
Absolutely.
Alan.
Yes, sir.
And thank you all for coming. We had like 30 people come. And
nice.
Have a great night, everyone.
Absolutely. Bye, guys. See you at the conference tomorrow.
Have fun.
See you.